Hello guys, welcome back to Mark Shrimp Tanks. In today's video it is Maintenance Monday, right, and there's more to it than it being a boring maintenance video, right, so this all ties in to what we have talked about in the past, and this is how I'm able to breed so many shrimp, right, so get that out of your head that a maintenance video is going to be boring because, as I said, it's essential that we do the following so that your tanks progress nicely enough for your shrimp to start breeding, right? So one of the ones, guys, that I would start off with is when you come into your room on Maintenance Monday. Guys, by the way, all these terms that we use, like Maintenance Monday, Fertilizer Friday, and like Top Up Tuesday and something, you can do your own scheduling, right? So my videos are about what I do in my shrimp room because this is how it helps me keep track of what I have to do in my tanks without having it written down all the time, right? Because I'm never the best at remembering what to do. Right? So if I come in the room and I know it's Maintenance Monday, I know, well, maybe I should look at this or I should look at something else, right? So for us specifically, right, it is essential that we get build up of biofilms, right? So that if you didn't know, right, my videos are about bee shrimp, Caridina shrimp mostly, right? So that is what this little series is about. There's 3 previous videos to this as well. So guys, in a nutshell, right, you want to produce as much biofilm in your tank as possible, right? Biofilm and algae, right? Algae is a part of biofilm, right? You want to produce as much as possible without it looking too nasty, right? So you have to try and play your cards right. So the way you do this, guys, in the setups that we have is you go with a more minimalistic approach to plants, right, and you also make sure that the surface is clear of any floating plants, right, because if there's stuff on the surface that's taking away light that comes down and it stops it hitting all the rest of the tanks, so and it basically produces less algae and less biofilm. Yeah, so you want to remove as much of the floating plants as possible. If you can remove them all, then that's fair dues, but a lot of the time if you have like duckweed and stuff in the tank, it's never going to be possible to remove all, because with duckweed all they need is a tiny little bit, even if it's dried out, to fall back in the water and a tiny little bit of duckweed can grow off it and it starts reproducing again. That's why it's so hard for us to get rid of duckweed. So you want to get rid of all the floating plants, and then inside the tank itself you want there to be as minimal plants as possible, right? Because if there's less plants in the tank, any nutrients that are building up in the tank itself will go into your walls and the biofilm and the algae and everything else. That's how this actually works. That's how we're able to breed so many baby shrimp, because baby shrimp predominantly will feed off biofilm before anything else that you put in the tank, right? So the more that you can give them, the better it is, right? So, and that actually leads on to our next part as well, and that is in our tanks to create biofilm we need more leaves, sorry. I know a lot of professional breeders, they don't use leaves at all, right, but I like to use them because they give us a good indicator of how the tank is progressing, because when you have a decent amount of shrimp in the tank, and it can be a little bit hard to judge how much to feed them, using leaves is a good sign, because once the shrimp start to get hungry, if they're in great condition, they will start to gnaw away at the leaves, right, and these leaves, my god, my chest, these leaves are actually an awesome place for biofilm to grow as well, right? So if you add them to the tank, you're adding more biofilm to the tank, and there's more places for your baby shrimp to feed them. So that is one of the things I do when I come in my room, is I come in and then I look for leaves. Is there sufficient leaves in the tank for our needs, to see a visual representation of how well the shrimp are feeding. And finally, guys, what we also would do today is check the pH. Right, so I actually did mine last week, right? So if you do this, I put it down as Maintenance Monday, but it's basically, you want to check this at least every couple of months, not every week. But I thought I'd put it in here just so it reminds you guys to actually do it, right? So you go away and get your pH meter, make sure you get a decent one. And I find that the bigger ones, the handheld ones like this size, are better because they have bigger batteries and they're more accurate than the small ones if you have a handheld one, because the batteries are bigger, they can get more technology into them and whatever else, right? So we're going to start off by actually removing the floating plants. You can see here there's a lot of duckweed in this tank, there's a little bit in this one, and there's none in that one. Right, so we're going to start by removing the duckweed, and yeah, we'll just fly through this as well because I don't want to make the video too boring for you guys, but we need to take out a little bit of water, because what this is going to do is it's going to allow us to look in our bucket later when we dispose of the duckweed, and it's going to allow us to see if there's any baby shrimp in here, right? So let's take a little bit out. All you need is a few litres. And then you're going to use a comb like this, You've seen this a billion times on my channel. And then we're going to actually comb the duckweed out of the actual tank. Right, so tomorrow is Top Up Tuesday for me, so yeah, this water will be getting replaced. Right, and you're simply sweeping it up like this, all at once, and that is the majority of duckweed out of that tank already. Place it in your bucket. You can do this as much as you like or as little as you like. And to be honest guys, I think I do this like once a month. Now this tank here has a lot of it, a lot of duckweed. And it's a little bit hard in tanks guys where you can't get all the duckweed out at once. Like that. So I have a lot of moss in this tank at the back on this corner, and it's just filled with duckweed, right? So I always have issues with getting all the duckweed out of tanks like this. And let's actually just look at the tanks themselves. Is there leaves, guys? Is there leaves in the tank? So in this tank here, there's a few leaves. In this tank here, there's a few leaves. And in this tank here, there's one, but it's actually none away to virtually nothing, right? So we are actually going to take out the Java moss in this tank because it is starting to get a little bit too much. You can see here it is more than half. Hopefully you can see that. I don't have the camera set properly. It's more than half of the tank is Java moss, right? So we're going to move that as well. And that is also, guys, it's also going to go into a bucket that we have down here. This one here with all the duckweed and stuff. Right, so all you do is you grab handfuls of it. You want to keep some in the tank. Make sure you got all the shrimp off, because baby shrimp like to be clingers. There's actually a leaf in there, so we won't have to replace it. And don't be worried guys if you make a mess of your tank doing this. What's important is getting a lot of the plant mass out there as possible. So that's how much we have in the tank. There's a little bit of cryptocornea there. I don't see, looking back, that there is any more plants in there, so this can just go to the back. Right, and that is it. We have our leaf in there, and our tank is good. You see it? A little bit of water tank there. This probably is still a little bit too much plant mass, but yeah, that is what we do. This is what we do with all our tanks. Alright guys, we're on to the last section. That is pH. Let me go grab my pH meter. It's a MILWAUKEE pH meter. This cost me about €300, I think. Switch it on. I actually got this idea from Raymond Swart. Here, a little bit of tape so you can actually hang it on a little clamp like this on the tanks. And yeah, you need to take off the little cap thing. There's a little bit of water in here that protects the probe, like this. And then it goes straight into the tank, and you just leave it for however long it takes to get an accurate reading. Right, so I know this tank for sure, it's up about 6 already, which is up on the high side, and that is why we've talked about this before, this one specifically, that I want to change it. And it's funny guys, because look at how many baby shrimp there is in this tank. So this tank needs reset just because the pH is starting to climb quite high. But these babies don't seem to mind so far. But the main reason we need to change the soil, guys, is because once you get closer to 7, there's nothing to stop ammonia in the tank, or ammonium becoming ammonia and then becoming toxic to the shrimp. So it's important that you keep this in check in the tank. And it's not, I'd want to say it's not linear. Is that the correct word, linear? As in, it isn't like an instant thing where the ammonium transfers to ammonia instantly and then becomes toxic to the shrimp. I think it is over time, right? So it's probably up around about 6.5, something like that, that if you start to take readings in your tank, if you had specific tests for ammonia and ammonium, 2 different test kits, it's probably about that level that you'd probably start to see some issues, right? And eventually this tank will crash, and basically the shrimp won't be able to live in here. Right, because what is actually happening, guys, is your buffer, the acid in the soil, has leached out enough over time that then there will be no buffer, right? So then there is nothing to stop your tank from swinging like this. You see it's 6.2, it's still going up actually. The little baby shrimp don't seem to mind, but they're in here right now because yeah, there's still a tiny bit, a little bit too small to move on. So you can now scroll down like this even. That's a better picture, and you can see them nicely there. So this is why, even though it looks like the tank is very productive by the amount of baby shrimp in here, this is why we have to change it, unfortunately. But this is something that you have to do at least every month or two, I would suggest, just go and check your pH, because I don't think I have very much time left on this tank before it becomes toxic. Right, and it can happen like overnight, guys. You can have this thing where it just becomes bad overnight. And yeah, there's some things I want to change on this anyway, some of the stuff I want to change. But yeah, I did think about actually just topping this tank up with fresh soil, and then the pH would drop. But sudden drops in pH can be detrimental to shrimp as well. And yeah, I didn't fancy just keep on adding soil and adding soil and adding soil, because there comes a time, guys, where if you keep on adding soil to a tank, the soil underneath will eventually go off and it'll become bad. Right, so I noticed this with some of my tanks before, where I remove soil that has a very deep substrate, that it can become very smelly, like fishy smell. So that is an indicator to me that there's probably a build-up of sulfide or something in the soil, and it's not good.